Welcome back to the studio, friends, as we create the 2023 Bujo setup together. If you've been here for longer than a minute, you know that I create my own journal each year with the purpose to make it truly unique to my needs and an expression of my heart and who and what I hold dear. During the busyness of the Christmas season and as 2022 was coming to a close, I had given more than a passing thought to what the New Year's setup was going to look like. However, for me, I always find that this process is organic. It's something that comes to me without really thinking too much about it. It's not something that I have to sit there and really brainstorm about. It's something that presents itself. It's a quote that inspires me, or it's a person, or it's just something that's going on in my life. So when I heard the news on January 1st that we had lost a dear soul, for me, that was all the message I needed to hear. This young man he's intertwined in every memory of my children growing up, and he will be sorely missed. So this journal this year is dedicated to you, Jack.
I'm driving down an empty freeway, no waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
My cover page became a two-part process. So the page that you see is I sat down and created all these beautiful little doodles, little leaves and flowers. I just wanted an abundance of life. I wanted a page just full to the brim with blooms and life and prettiness, I guess. And I was sitting down in the evening, and this is what became. So I then decided that my second part of my cover page would be in my black card, and it would have the year, and I would cut it out to show just a peek of this wonderful life that is hidden beneath. And so you'll just see me drawing these sketches. They're very simple. They're not overthought. They're not contrived. They're not 100% accurate. They're young and they're youthful for a reason, because Jack was only 15. So I guess without thinking, that is something that became as well. So I hope you enjoy this page. I do skip through a little bit here and there, and I'll leave the background music play while you create. If anyone's interested in me posting something like this, that it would help you when you create, do let me know, and it's something that I'll consider doing, maybe in a PDF or something that you can then print and help you out with your sketches.
I'm driving down an empty freeway. No waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
Okay, so there you have it, that beautiful page that's just full of life and happiness. It is on a digital silk paper, so you could see me turning it around and being careful not to put my hand on the ink that I had just used. So just take that into account if you're creating your own journal, as I always do. I will post the link for you below. So if you're interested in seeing the journal for this year, and then it does give me that option to use whatever papers and media that I like. So, okay, I'm not going to tell you a lie. Cutting out this lovely card, it's a 250 GSM. I love the black. It was fiddly though. So I do take care and put your patient hat on. My craft knife's quite sharp, but I still found it was easier to get in there with my black craft scissors and use them for quite a bit of it as well, just to smooth the edges out and things like that. And then I had a bit of a break and added in the white gel pen as well, saying hello gorgeous, sending it out into the ether that hopefully this year will be relatively kind to us, forever hopeful of good things.
I'm driving down an empty freeway, no waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
And there you have the pages sitting together, so you can see that beautiful life bursting through the cutout letters of the year. Okay, so then I moved on to my key, what is a bullet journal setup without a key. So these are your symbols that you use for appointments, meetings, reminders, whatever it is that you need. So in the past, I've done things that were quite traditional. I've done the kind of rescheduling appointments, etc. And I did do a couple of the kind of standard ones. But I will go back and you will see that I really had a bit of fun this year creating something that was really quite special to me and unique to me. So I do encourage you to think about the things that you do every day and create a symbol for something, for one of those things. So I did start with this beautiful border again. I was going to tape the edge but then decided against it. Again, it is on the, it's actually on white card, this one. So this was the same kind of blooms and I wanted it to border the key. Again, I'm using the edge of the blooms. I purposely drew them and sketched them so that they would fall off the edges, and then I'm using the edges of the leaves and the flowers to create a border but without having a hard edge. I just love the idea of no boundaries. So then I've moved on to the word key at the top, got to have that in there before I move on and add all the sweet little symbols of things that mean something to me. So again, I've actually added in things like baking, going for a ride, doing the washing. I'm a mama, washing's always key. Yoga, because I like to start my day almost every day with a little bit of yoga, a bit of gym. It's good for my mind and body. So I did do a little symbol for yoga. I did one for filming because I'm quite often filming to share with you videos and editing and things like that. So I added in symbols for that. You'll see a little envelope for when I'm doing emails and paperwork. I do sew a lot because I have my own linen collection, so I did a little pair of scissors for that as well. Again, I encourage you to make this personal for you. And this is actually the first year that I've really created my own symbols, and I'm just asking myself, why didn't I do it sooner?
I'm driving down an empty freeway, no waiting for the light to I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
Now, if you actually saw my first video as I created the journal for this year, you will see that when I turn this page over, I use this as a template when I'm punching the holes in the journal. So you can see that there's some paint on that other page. So for me, I love to repurpose. I love vintage. I don't like throwing things away. I think that there's always another use. I think you just need to be a little more creative. In fact, I love working when I'm designing, being an interior designer, as well as surface designer, etc. I love working with a budget. I love not just going out and having, limitless money to spend. I find it makes a much more interesting space. I think it lets you allow the house to speak to you and the occupants of the house and tell you what it really needs. So I find that being more creative and like I said, not just splashing money around, but really being purposeful with your choices and the things you purchase. I guess that's being a conscious consumer as well. It's about, I guess it comes back to my journaling, that I like to be mindful of my time, who I spend it with, remembering to count my blessings, even at a sad time such as now. I remind myself that I am lucky to feel the sorrow I feel, because it means that I feel the love that I felt. So there's always something to give thanks for if you really think about it. So I think it all ties back to this conscious thought of how I'm living, how I'm spending, who I'm supporting, to be kind, to be thoughtful. So I hope that this helps you, and you'll probably feel that way too, because you're quite a creative, and creative souls just seem to feel more. So you're probably very much a kindred spirit. And this particular style on this one, so I'm talking about the watercolour itself now, not only was I making the best of the mark, it then gave me a little bit of inspiration to create this sweet burst of blooms, which again just works with this this time and this theme and this moment, to create these really loose brush strokes. Again, this is a cardstock, a 250 GSM cardstock. It's not a watercolor paper. I did create Christmas cards, so there is a video that was really quite popular, thank you, where I created Christmas cards with a lovely cardstock I had instead of using watercolor paper. So it's absolutely doable to use your watercolors on paper other than watercolor. You just kind of have to keep in mind how you're going to do that. And it works really well with this very loose style. And I am going to come back in with some ink. And this actually turned out to be one of my favorite pages.
I'm driving down an empty freeway. No waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise
and you'll see me now adding ink. Now you will notice that I'm quite cautious. I seem to be a bit haphazard in, like, I've started the word celebrate and I started it at the AT&E, not at the beginning. The reason for that is that the watercolour, although I was quite cautious not to get too hefty with the water on the page, because this is, as I said, cardstock, not watercolour paper, I'm just taking care not to put my hand on the paint while it's wet. So I started creating, I've done the pencil sketch so it's easy for me to use that as a guide, and I'm kind of drawing backward. I'm letting the paint dry as it did. This is relatively in real time, so as you can see, it doesn't actually take very long for that paint to dry, so that I can go over it with ink. And I decided to call this page Celebrate. So instead of doing a year at a glance, because my journal is a little bit smaller this time around, which means it fits in my purse a little bit better, which is handy. It's also made from a vintage book, so the book dictates the size of it. Okay, so it's not one that I've gone to a store and purchased. But I decided, instead of doing the full year at a glance, to do the first 6 months, and I will add in the last 6 months when we get to June. Okay, so I decided to do January, February, March, April, May and June on this one with these sweet floral blooms, and I will add things like anniversaries and birthdays and things like that into those boxes at a later date. And then it is a nice little reminder to remember those special birthdays and events. Sometimes a little reminder when you're getting really busy to check it at the beginning of the month when you've done your weekly spread, and then pop them into those spaces, because we do all get busy. But it is nice, if possible, not to forget those wonderful events. And I will raise my hand because I forget my anniversary every single year, because I'm not looking at the date necessarily that day. Not that I don't adore my husband, he's my best friend.
I'm driving down an empty freeway, no waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
So I hope that you enjoyed this page as much as me. I think I really need to do something like this more often. That little splash of orange that looked like it was a piece of paper that should be thrown away turned out to be one of my favourite pages, so there you go. Sometimes thinking outside the square and being reluctant to throw away a perfectly good sheet of paper just because there's a little mark on it, it adds up. Turns out to be a bonus, and you'll have a happy accident. Okay, so for me, my bujo would not be complete if it didn't have a page dedicated to the books I've read. Now, I started this a few years ago. I found that I had, and you all see videos, and you know, I guess, about what the classic books, what their storyline is. We know Little Women. We have a general idea of Robin Crusoe, the Three Musketeers, Heidi, so many others. But until we actually sit down and read the book, we have no idea of the joy we're missing out on. So a few years ago, I decided that I was going to stop saying I will find time to do this one day. And I love to collect vintage books and do lovely sketches inspired by them. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put one of these books next to my bed. I was always such a huge reader when I was a young girl. It's one of the things I love most that I really got from my nan. And I spent so many hours reading with her and going to the library. So for me, putting that book next to the bed, I found that I read so many of the classics that I'd wanted to read for so many years. And some of them were kids' books like Heidi and Black Beauty and things like that. But the stories in them were just heartwarming and uplifting, and the stories were amazing. And although I had a general idea of the idea of the storyline, reading it and really knowing it was a whole different ball game. So for me, this page was full of the classics by the end of the year. And it's a page I have vowed to continue to do, to actively remind me and make me seek out those books I've always wanted to read. So for me, it's Huck Finn this year. I really want to find Huck Finn. Last year I did David Copperfield and so many others as well. But this year I've been looking for Huck Finn for ages, so I need to go out and find that in there. So somebody check in with me and make sure that I've read that one. If you do, that would be great.
I'm driving down an empty freeway. No waiting for the light to change. I'm seeing the sunrise behind me.
Along with the inevitable blank spines that will have titles filled in on them at the end of the year, I did like to add a few little things that you would see on a bookshelf, or maybe in my house, maybe not in yours, but like that lovely old pottery jar with the pencils in it, the apple, the candle, which if it was on a bookshelf might cause a fire, but it's okay because it's just in my sketch, not in real life. A little bottle of ink, a plant, all those little things. So this is something, if you need inspiration, you can go to Pinterest. For me, this all comes from my mind. Every one of these little pictures came from the recesses of my imagination only. They weren't copied from anyone else, but that doesn't mean that I'm not happy to inspire you. Okay, so this is another page that has featured in previous years. This is my blog posts or ideas for blogs. For me, I'll kind of keep tabs. For me, I used to find it was hard to remind myself that I need to blog, I need to tell the story. Now it is such an everyday that I last year found that I didn't write in half the things that I did, but I had so many, like even recipes. I shared so many videos. I was creating my bujo. I always end up adding a watercolor, even in this one. I didn't do a color palette or a traditional watercolor cover page, but I still ended up adding watercolor in there. For me, it just feels second nature. So this one will be an easy one for me to fill in, and I'll probably have to add another page in, at least one other page, to kind of keep track of what I wrote and when. It's just a good way to kind of keep track if I'm looking back on if I, achieve the goals I set for myself. So this one's an easy one. I just drew it so it looks like lots of pencils, and it's super easy to do. Anyone can draw these. Super, super easy. As always, I always find a quote that speaks to me that I feel needs to be in the month that I'm working on, and this one is certainly no different. This one for me is just it. I guess it's my mantra. It's what I want you guys to do. I want you to believe in you. I want you to be brave and start. I don't want you to feel that you have to be perfect. Um, it's just such a wonderful, wonderful quote. And if you see my journal that I've just created for this year, this is a notes sleeve that I created, and I just simply turned it over and added this quote on. So it says, if you feel something calling you to dance or write or paint or sing, please refuse to worry about whether you're good enough. Just do it. Thank you for being here with me and sharing this with me this month. And just finishing off with a little dedication for Jack. This one's for you.